I think June saved me from a terrible fate. Someone posted on another sub something about security, and for some reason, it reminded me of a really weird occurrence that took place when I was in college. I thought you all might get a kick out of it. When I was approximately 20 years old, I'm F, I subleased a friend's place for the summer. It was one of those houses built for college students, in a subdivision that's all college students. The house had 4 bedrooms. I rented one bedroom, but the other roommates were out of town for the summer as well, so I was alone. Coincidentally, one of my friends had a younger sibling that needed to find a home for her rescue pit for the summer. I've had boxers all my life and always loved pit bulls. I'd always been curious. To this day, I'm so glad I had that dog. I swear she saved me, possibly my life. I'm obsessive about 2 things BC of who I am as a person: cleaning and locking doors, or setting alarms when I leave or I'm alone, which meant I was locking and setting the alarm a lot. That summer BC I was alone. The first night I had the pit bull, her name was June. I was a little nervous if I'm being honest. I didn't know until my friend dropped the dog off, but my friend's sibling had just rescued this pit, like less than a month ago. Clearly, I should have asked more questions. I was nervous BC this dog was a bit apprehensive about me, and fresh out of the shelter or rescue, wherever my friend's sibling found her. This was clear by the way she interacted with me and the home surroundings. It was clear June had been abused. This dog had scars all over her body, and by the looks of it, had semi-recently given birth. Also worth noting, June was hulked out. This dog was absolutely jacked. I'd rehabbed a dog before, so I felt I was up to the challenge. After all, I had the entire summer and it was just June and I. Note, this house had those magnetic fob locks, a door at the front of the house, which faced the rest of the houses in the neighborhood. There was also a door at the back of the house, which faced a sort of alley, where I parked my car. I locked any door, any time I used it, as well as the door to the bedroom whenever I went to sleep. I had June in the bedroom with me. There was an alarm on the house, but the girls that actually lived there, remember I was subleasing, never set it up and didn't have the desire to do so, which meant I was relying on the locks. Night 1. I get into bed, direct June to the comfy, plush bed I'd put together for her, laid her toys in it, super soft blankets, the works. I guess June decided, nah, BC, the next thing I knew, she was in the bed with me, facing me with her head, and all those teeth, a few inches from mine. I barely slept BC. I was so scared I'd accidentally roll onto her foot or something, scare her, and end up with my face eaten off. Yes, I know this is silly, but it's what was going through my mind as I laid awake, staring at this massive, absolutely unit of a dog. Night 2. Same thing, except I fell asleep. I woke up the next morning to June staring directly into my soul. We're bonding. Night 3. We spent the evening watching movies, snuggling. I shared my pizza crusts, and she was definitely feeling the love BC. She finally let me scratch her belly and started to act like a puppy and less like the recently released inmate. Morning after night 3. I wake up and it's still really early in the morning, as in it's like 6:37 a.m. I usually got up around 9 a.m. for my class at noon. As I'm coming out of the sleepy stupor, trying to get my bearing and understand why the hell I'm awake so early, I clock June. June is absolutely snarling at the bedroom door, body slamming the door, sniffing while snarling the base of the door, lunging over and over at the handle of the door. It was absolutely terrifying, but I wasn't afraid of her. I quickly realized something or someone is right outside my bedroom door and jiggling the door handle, which I'd locked. I do live in Texas, so I grabbed my 12 gauge that I kept under my bed and racked it. It's a very, very old and very loud gun. When I racked the gun, everything became very quiet. M equals me, RG equals random guys. M. Who's there? RG. Maintenance. We're maintenance. We didn't mean to scare you. We're here to fix the dishwasher. M. I didn't put in a maintenance request, and the dishwasher is in the kitchen on the first floor. RG. Yeah, we were told no one was here. I'm training a new guy and thought I'd show him what most of the houses look like inside. At this point, June is losing her ever-loving mind, and I'm armed, Kind of annoyed that these idiots have woken me up so early. Then it dawns on me, I deadbolted the doors. Maybe the maintenance people had some way to bypass the deadbolts? I honestly don't know. This was time when the magnetic fobs were kind of new, or new to the apartments near campus anyways. I should have been more scared, but I could tell these guys were shutting their pants between hearing the monster on the other side of the door and my gun racking. So I cracked the door a smidge, just enough for them to see the gun, June foaming at the mouth, and so that I could get a look at their uniform, to confirm whether they were real servicemen or not. Weirdly enough, they didn't have on any uniforms. There were 3 men. 2 men looked like they'd had it rough. They were maybe in their early 40s, and the other guy was in his mid-20s. All 3 of these men were dirty, like they'd been sleeping outside maybe. The clothes appeared clean, but they had not seen a shower in a hot minute. I tell them to leave, or I'd open the door, let June out. I tell them I'll call the front office and clear this up, but for now, they need to leave. And sure enough, all 3 men turned around and got out of my house. Once the men left, I checked the doors and the back door was unlocked. I'd checked it the night before. No chance I'd forgotten to lock it. I called the front office the minute it was open at 8 a.m., to which they said they hadn't dispatched any maintenance men that day and asked me for a description of the men. I'm not sure if they were ever caught, but I certainly hope so. I have never been so scared in my life. I'd used my gun when hunting, but never once pointed it at a person. In that specific housing complex, at least 5 women were attacked in the weeks before this encounter, so I was definitely on edge. I kept June the entire summer and would have tried to adopt her, as we definitely bonded, and I knew she had my back. I felt so safe with her. But the place I was moving into wasn't a place she'd be happy, as it didn't have a yard and it was really small. To this day, I'm convinced June saved me from something truly horrible. To the maintenance men, may we never meet again. This will be long, so sorry in advance. I, 23F, live alone in a decently nice apartment in a nice neighborhood for 2 years now. For the most part, the mail gets delivered to the mailboxes at the front entrance of the building. Occasionally, packages are delivered straight to apartment doors, and it's pretty convenient. Well, about a year ago, I was home from work during the day because I took the afternoon off to go to a doctor appointment. The doorbell rang, and I have a Ring camera. I saw it was the mailman, so I answered. I have this whole exchange on video. He was maybe in his 30s, white, short like 5 feet 5 inches or so, very large glasses, really disheveled thin hair. I opened the door, smiled and said, "Thanks so much," and went to take the package. He stopped and stared at me like something was wrong, so I was like, "Oh, sorry, did you need to take a picture of the delivery or something?" And to my surprise, he said, "I know you. I've seen you before. And you can see on the camera my face changes. My body demeanor gets uncomfortable, and I move behind the door." I said, "I'm sorry, I don't think we've met." I went to shut the door, but he raises his voice and takes a step forward and said, "I've seen your name on your mail. I found you on Instagram." My face went white, and I froze. I said, "Me?" I was kind of like a deer in headlights. He said, "Yeah, you are a person of interest on Instagram for me. Your account was private, but you're pretty." I said thanks, and slammed the door, locking it quickly. I was happy to know I caught the whole thing on video. I showed it to my then boyfriend, who agreed it was weird. A few days later, on Saturday, he's back at my door. He rang the bell about 10 times, waiting a few minutes, just staring. I answered him through the doorbell and said, "Hi, you can just leave any mail, thanks." What he said next made me shake. He said, "I actually don't have any mail for you today. I just wanted to say hi. Can I come in for a glass of water?" I decided to just not answer. TBH, I didn't know what to say. But then about 2 weeks go by. My then boyfriend stayed the night and slept in. I left early for work. I get a call around 10:30 from my BF. I won't believe what just happened and to check the camera. I do. The mailman came. He rang the bell a few times and my boyfriend answered the door. The mailman took a step back and my boyfriend stood for a moment and they stared at each other. He realized the mailman didn't have anything in his hands. He said, "Can I help you?" And the mailman said, "Where's the small girl who lives here? I'm pretty petite. I'm slightly under 5 feet 100 pounds. My BF was stunned and said, "I live here too." From now on, leave our packages downstairs, and slammed the door. I was really happy he said that because truthfully, he didn't live with me full time, maybe 2 nights a week. It seemed to work. I didn't see the mailman again at all, actually. My then boyfriend and I broke up a few months ago. I completely forgot about the mailman until today. I was entering my building where he was exiting at the same time I was entering. He stared at me, and I went to walk by. He turned to walk after me and said, "Hey, I haven't seen that guy in a while who used to live with you. Did he move out?" I panicked and walked faster, grabbing my keys, but I lied and said, "Oh, he's around." And as I entered quickly, I said, "Hey, honey, I'm home," and slammed it fast. IDK, why I lied, but something told me to make it clear I wasn't alone. Am I being dramatic or mean, or is he creepy? Comments, you are right to be taking this extremely seriously. This kind of thing can escalate quickly. I would report him to your local post office because that's also super unprofessional and certainly against their basic code of conduct. Send them the Ring camera videos when you report him and request that he never deliver mail to your building again, or you will report him to the police for harassment. Also, make sure you have very secure locks on your door. Maybe add an extra chain or deadbolt. You really don't want to take any chances with this. Be aware when entering and exiting your building and avoid being alone with him at all costs. Bad things can happen in elevators, stairwells, or even hallways, like a man shoving a woman into her own apartment and following after her. Never answer the door if he comes up to it, regardless of whether he has mail. As long as he thinks you have a man in the house, he will probably leave you alone, but there's really no guarantee. I've had a stalker before, and sometimes they escalate. It can get bad, so take care of yourself. Update. I took everyone's advice, thank you all so much. I decided to reach out to the super of my apartment and explain the situation and show him the videos. He said he will implement a new policy that male personnel are not permitted to walk around the complex. Simply go to the designated mailroom and leave. I also got large men's work boots and put them outside my door. Second update. Wow, I wasn't expecting so many people to care about my story. LMAO. Thank you, everyone. I took the advice and everyone telling me this isn't acceptable and decided it was time to call the postmaster. I sent them the video recordings I had and they assured me they will be looking into the matter as well as assigning a new mailman to my route. I also made sure to go down to my local police precinct and file an incident report, and they have the videos as well. Thank you, everyone. Also, I'm flattered so many people are concerned, but I'm getting a lot of requests to post the videos. Considering I am in them, and it shows my apartment, and this still is ongoing, I prefer not to post them publicly yet. If anyone thinks they have experienced the same thing with him, please DM me. I'll send the videos privately, just not on the public forum. The office in the middle of nowhere. When I was 19, I worked for a company that allocated labor to rural areas of Australia. Basically, what you did was tell them when you were available, and they'd send you to a remote farm for a few weeks, where you'd do whatever they needed done. It was hard work and long hours, but good pay and good fun if you got in with a nice group of workers. When this occurred, I was working on a large property. I was told it covered roughly the same landmass as the state of Maryland, USA, about 9 hours from Sydney City, and the property itself was about 40 minutes from the nearest town. In short, it was the middle of nowhere. I was working at the farm clearing bushland with 3 other guys my age from the city. Our boss was a guy called Jeremy, who owned the farm and supervised us while helping out with the work. He was pretty laid back and was generally really good to us. This summer in particular was very hot, and the work was hard, so one day when the temperature hit about 38 degrees Celsius, about 100 Fahrenheit, Jeremy decided to give us the afternoon off. He said he knew of a water hole on the farm about a 25-minute drive north. I was keen for a swim, but the other guys just wanted to relax for the arvo, so him and I hopped in one of the work trucks and started heading across the property. It was mostly wide, empty expanses with a few clumps of scattered bushland. Jeremy wasn't much of a talker, so we drove more or less in silence. After about 20 minutes, however, he suddenly perked up and jabbed me in the ribs. "Do you see that over there, beneath the 2 dead trees?" I should mention here that if you're not familiar with inland areas, particularly those in Australia, they are brown or red, and mostly flat and bland, meaning any bright colors stick out like a sore thumb. so you can imagine our surprise when we could see a large blue angular structure far off in the distance. We steered in its direction, and as we got closer, we realized it was a huge blue shipping container just sitting in the middle of nowhere. Jeremy was perplexed. I asked him if he knew what it was, but he obviously didn't. He said he hadn't seen it when he drove through the same area about 5 weeks before, and he wanted to go and see what it was. Initially, we pulled to a stop about 100 meters away from it. At this stage, I had a really bad feeling. The whole thing wasn't right. It's hard to explain. But if you can imagine seeing such a foreign object in the middle of a huge barren expanse, it had to be something weird. Jeremy, however, wanted to investigate, which I understood, given it was his property, but in truth I was really anxious. As we got closer, things got even more bizarre. There was a big diesel generator behind it thumping away, and a CCTV camera on each side, all motion activated so they buzzed from side to side, following us as we moved around. I tried to reason with Jeremy, something along the lines of, "With all this security, someone obviously doesn't want us here. Let's just go." He brushed me off, however, reminding me it was his farm, and whoever had put this here was trespassing, so he wanted to go inside. Despite all the surveillance, there was only a small padlock on the huge door. We had some bolt cutters in his toolbox, and after a bit of a struggle, we broke the lock and went inside. The first thing I noticed was the rush of cold air as we got in. The place was air-conditioned, which I must admit was quite pleasant on such a hot day. We searched around for a light switch, but I could already see this was some sort of IT setup. There were flashing LEDs all around the place, and the sort of hum you hear when a hard drive is working hard. When we finally switched on the lights, we could see a sophisticated, albeit somewhat cluttered, office set up. There were hard drives the size of bar fridges and other computer equipment lining the walls, sometimes piled 2 or 3 high, and plastic storage boxes scatter around the far wall, and several desks with computer monitors arranged in the middle, complete with rolling office chairs. At this stage, I felt like I was in one of those nonsensical dreams. This made absolutely no sense. We wandered to the middle and sat down at the desks to see if the computers could give us any idea of what the hell was going on here. My heart was racing and I just wanted to bolt. We had been seen by the CCTV, so if anyone was monitoring, they already knew we were here. Jeremy, on the other, was adamant we had to get to the bottom of this, so I put on a brave face and started looking through the computer. This went on for a while, but in short, neither of us had a very high grasp of technology outside of Facebook and Microsoft Word. The best I can describe it from my lay position is that it was endless lists of computer talk. It was like the old Napster or LimeWire download screens looked like, just constantly picking up and receiving data, then recording it on several windows. I gave up on the computers and walked cautiously over the far end of the container to the big pile of storage boxes. By then, I was pretty sure no one else was there, as there was nowhere to hide, really. But I was still incredibly on edge. I decided, against my better judgment, to see what was inside all these boxes. My brief sift through this box still makes me feel sick to the stomach. It didn't take long for me to realize that this box was full of posters, DVDs, and photos, all of hardcore child pornography. One thing that still gets to me is that it was all neatly ordered into folders and smaller boxes. These people were organized. I immediately recoiled, jumped up, and ran over to Jeremy. I could hardly string a sentence together. I said something to the effect of, "Mate, get out, child sex, go, get the fuck up." I dragged him out, composed myself, and managed to explain what I saw. We jumped back into the truck and sped back to the house. The farm had no mobile phone reception, and we hadn't bought the satellite phone, so we had to get back to the landline to call the police. Once we called them, they still had to make it all the way to the farm from the nearest police station, which was in a town about a half hour from the town closest to the farm, as I mentioned, very remote. We waited, talking frantically about what we'd seen, until the cops arrived almost an hour later. They arrived with 2 four-wheel drives, and we jumped in and led them back. This is where it gets worse. By the time we got back, the container door was open and there was fire inside. We had only 2 small extinguishers in the cars, and these did very little. The fire department took an hour to get there, by which stage most of the damage was already done. An arson report by the federal police found almost no evidence of the computer equipment described, and only traces of paper and cardboard. This means that whoever ran it knew we were there and had time to come and remove most of it and get away. There were various ways to get off the property, and the land mass was huge, so there was no real way to tail them. Since the police hadn't taken us all too seriously in the first instance, probably due to our poor explanation on the phone, aerial surveillance was also impossible by the time we had pieced it all together. I took a keen interest in following it up, but with no real evidence of who might be responsible, the investigation went cold. I've kept in contact with Jeremy, and the shipping container is still sitting there on the farm, as it's too expensive to move. I'll never forget what I saw in those boxes. Comments. Wow. Makes you wonder how many other similar operations are around. And why not try to hide it a bit better, and just a simple padlock to prevent access? Strange. OP gave more information in the comments. Thanks for the support, and in response to a few questions, the fire. Judging by the arson report, a lot of the computer equipment had been moved, so it wasn't remotely started. Someone came there and started it after removing stuff. The location. I don't really want to draw attention to Jeremy's farm as the former location of a child pornography ring. It's his home, and he, like any farmer, takes a lot of pride in managing his land, so I'd rather not post Google Maps location. 90% of Australia is unoccupiable, barren expanses, so it's not too easy to find pictures. I don't want to ask him for that. It's a bit of a perverse request, and it was quite a traumatic experience. We didn't take any pictures at the time, because with no phone reception, there was no reason to have a phone or a camera. The police. We explained the situation very poorly on the phone because we were really frantic, and I still feel bad about it. But in the situation, it was very hard to keep composure. And also due to remoteness, they couldn't mobilize people very quickly. I don't blame them. I suppose that's why you'd have a setup so far away. The diversion. I thought about that, but it would be a very elaborate means of diverting attention, especially in such a remote place. Thank you for watching the video. Did the stories creep you out? Let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks.